Hey folks, excuse me. I want to talk briefly about Project 4, and specifically I want to talk about the two components of Project 4, and then I want to provide a few examples that I hope will clarify the sorts of directions you can go. So for Project 4, there are two things that you are doing. Number one, you're writing a short piece, and by short piece what I mean is you're writing about 600 to 750 words. You can think about that as about a page to a page and a half single spaced. And the short piece that you're writing is a piece that incorporates concepts from the course that you find valuable. So if you remember last week, I gave you that review sheet and it had all of these concepts we worked on in units 1, 2, and 3. And then in unit 4, we took a look at the David Foster Wallace speech. So we have a ton of ideas that are running through the course. Some of those ideas are very specific to subjects, right? So we talked about issues like critical literacy. We talked about issues like mediums of communication and propaganda, right? These are subject specific. But we also just talked about concepts. In other words, we talked about how critical literacy allows us to look at a text and look at things like strategies and bias and the distinction between an overt purpose and a more subtle agenda, right? So these are concepts that could be applied to other subjects in which we're interested. So the whole point of Project 4 is for you to review the course, to consider all the stuff in the course, and to write a short piece informed by concepts in the course that you think are valuable. So that's the first part. The second part is then to provide me a list that highlights the concepts in your writing that have been informed by the course, that come from the course. So let me give you a few examples of the sorts of work that students are doing so that you can start to wrap your head around this piece. Here's a really interesting one that's coming from a student in one of my on-ground classes. This student is actually a pastor at a church, and so he's writing a very short sermon. And his sermon is actually his take on the David Foster Wallace piece. But when he writes his sermon, in effect, he's building an argument. So he has to have a variety of claims in the argument. He's going to use a variety of different modes of reasoning in that argument, some multiple small examples. And the subject that he's talking about is very much connected to the David Foster Wallace piece. So he's writing a sermon, but that sermon is going to have a ton of concepts from the course. The content is connected to David Foster Wallace, and then all that other stuff, the claims, the modes of reasoning, all of those things are coming from the course. Okay. Similarly, I have another student who's actually a small business owner. He does an auto detailing business, and so he's writing an introductory letter for his business. And yet that letter is an argument, and it's going to be informed by a ton of concepts from the course, right? So he's going to think in terms of the different strategies he can use to persuade his audience that they should call him for his auto detailing business. Think about this letter as the sorts of letters that people put on front doors, right? So he's going to write this letter, and then the analysis is going to show how a lot of the decisions in his letter are connected to concepts from the course. I have another student who's writing a proposal to the city of Vista for a skate park. Same sort of thing. He's building an argument in this little proposal, but in that argument, there's going to be all these concepts from the course, different sorts of modes of reasoning, etc. I have another student who's writing about vaping, the smoking, and he's writing an opinion editorial that he wants to send in to the Encinitas Advocate. So once again, here's a student building an argument, right, about a subject of his choice, and yet in order to build the argument, he's going to think about all of these ideas in the course. So those are a few examples, and I hope that they start to give you a sense of the sorts of different directions that you can go for this final assignment. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Okay, take care.